Hello, I'm Julie from Naked Dragon, and I'm here this evening with Nick Williams.
Hi.
Good evening, Nick.
Good to see you.
Welcome to your first Naked Dragon event.
Yeah, well, I've been
Yes.
an audience member, haven't I?
You
It's
have.
the first time I've presented.
That's right, and it's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Great to
because
be here.
We've known each other a long time, so it's been a long time coming, so thank you very much. And we're here this evening to talk about resisting the soul, which is something that we all seem to do a lot of, and there are many, many different ways that we do resist the soul. And perhaps you could just explain to us very briefly some of the main ways that we do this, and how we almost need to get out of our own way.
Well, the first thing is to recognise that resistance is a kind of secondary force that kicks in when we get inspired to follow our higher purpose or express our love and creativity in the world. So it's a secondary purpose, and it shows up as things like procrastination, forever planning to do things but never doing them, being a perpetual student and kind of getting enough letters after your name that you feel like you might be confident enough, being a perfectionist, trying to get everything right before you start, even things like addictions, or just keep yourself so busy that you just distract yourself from what you know you want to be doing. All of us can be really creative in how we go into resistance. I think some of us seem to put all our creative energy into resistance rather than being creative. So, most people can recognise it. And we all do it, it's nothing to be ashamed of, but I think it's important that we recognise it so that we know how to get beyond it.
So would you describe it as almost getting out of our own way?
Sure.
Yes.
It's like we've got a soul and we've got a personality and an ego. And really it's getting the ego and personality out of the way so that our soul can express themselves. But I think it's really important to remember again that, what resistance is seeking to do is squash our spirit, in a way it's hide the love that's in us, hide our higher purpose. That's his purpose. So when we see it that way round, we can actually see resistance as a signpost. And that's the key thing for many people, is they see it as a stop sign rather than to see it as a signpost.
So what advice would you have for people to recognise when resistance is beginning to kick in? What are the main sort of telltales to be aware of?
That kind of core awareness of like, I just got really inspired, didn't I? And now I'm talking myself out of it. What's going on here? So it's to recognise what happens after we get inspired, because resistance always happens after we get inspired about something.
Yes.
So it's to recognise, I was inspired, now I'm kind of losing that, and almost like track back. Okay, I've gone into some fear, gone into doubt, my mind's kicked in, whatever it might be, the fear's kicked in, and to trace back to the initial inspired thought, grab hold of it again, and then begin to move forward.
That's really interesting then. So when we become aware of that resistance beginning to kick in, do we need to almost acknowledge and respect it and say, thank you, I'm aware of you, I'm aware that you're there, and then take ourselves gently back to that initial inspiration?
Very much so, because I think you're right. I would say, and maybe I'm overgeneralising, but for the majority of people, they live in a form of resistance but don't even realise they're doing it. So one of the ways that resistance really operates is to stay out of awareness.
Yes.
So that's one of the reasons I wrote my last book on it, Resisting Your Soul, was really just to throw some light on and illuminate this whole area of resistance, so people go, now I understand it. I didn't really get it before. Now I get it.
Yes. So it's about becoming more and more mindful of. Well, there's so much to it, isn't there? Really, because I suppose that in the way that you've described it, almost everything in our life is some form of resistance.
Potentially, a lot of us do.
Yes.
And I even think the more you choose to show up in the world creatively and spiritually, actually the more resistance you're likely to be aware of. Because once you kind of start showing up, your ego will start bringing out as bigger guns to try and hold you back.
Yes. So it's allowing our inner light to shine. So to step up and really show it. Yes, show up and let our light shine and stay in that space. Don't let that little voice sort of tell us otherwise, really, and pull us away from.
Have the courage to show up. And, the other side of it, I say, to kind of inspire and motivate people is, as each of us shows up with the gifts and the love and the insights and the voice that we have in the world is blessed by that. So in a way, giving into your resistance, I know kind of sounds a bit funny, but it's actually quite selfish.
Yes.
I think it's incredibly generous to be your resistance and show up with what you have to contribute, because I really do believe that each of us are the answer to each other's prayers. And when we hide out and succumb to our resistance, everyone's poorer.
Yes, yes, absolutely, because we all have so much to share with each other. And
Yeah, you know, you showing up and running Naked Dragon events, if you've given into your resistance, hundreds of lives will be poorer.
that's a lovely way of looking at it. Yes, yes, it's not very often that I step out of my own resistance to be able to see that. But yes, I suppose that's true. And
it's true for all of us.
Yes, yes, 'cause it's not very often that we give ourselves the gift of taking a step back and giving ourselves a pat on the back and say, actually, by just turning up and just by following through and working our way through this resistance, this and this has happened as a result.
Yes. The world is blessed.
Well, absolutely, and the world is very blessed to have you here with us this evening, Nick, and it really is my pleasure. And thank you very much indeed,
Great.
and look forward to a great evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.